Okay. What's happening, y'all? Hopefully, y'all are doing all right. It is your humble host, Soul Expression, and I want to welcome you back to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to this channel. Welcome back to the ufuluchild channel. Welcome back to me, your humble host, Soul Expression. And I would like to say that we are not done talking about schools. Okay, we're not done exploring the wonderful world of got a text from the Mom Dukes. Y'all say what's up to Mom Dukes. The wonderful world of our modern, Rockefeller, Carnegie designed school system, where from Maine to California, we have the same textbooks as you'll hear a little bit later, where we have all of this funky stuff going on that we have to take a look at and have to really start to understand and give ourselves, use the understanding, use the information coming through podcasts like this one, as well as books that you may be reading. For instance, like John T. Gatto's book, um, that use the information to give ourselves permission to take our kids out of government school, to take our kids out of government influence altogether, right? To teach them in a worldview kind of way that government is completely illegitimate, that there is no such thing as a right to rule over others, and there's no such thing as a right to treat people in complete disregard of their freedoms and rights. You cannot give a right that you do not have. And so I cannot give the government a right that I do not have. I cannot say to the government, please exercise these behaviors that I have no right to do on your own behalf, and what that really means, we will get into today. And I'm so very, very excited. Before I get any further in anything, before I even do any more housekeeping stuff, I just want to get you all excited for tomorrow's episode, because we have a banger planned for you guys. And I'm sorry, it's a little, I don't know why it's a little, there we go. This one's a lot clearer. That other one was a little fuzzy. Can I drag this down? There we go. Tomorrow, join us live at the Inner Storyteller right here, same place, same time. Same place an hour later, to talk education, natural law, and freedom with the esteemed Kali Fontanilla. Beautiful person. Her and her husband Josh are great, great people. I've known them for a while. Kali came on my podcast when I had 30 subscribers or so, something like 30 subscribers. And this was a previous podcast. This wasn't the Inner Storyteller podcast. But basically, she was a teacher and she ended up retiring, and her eyes were just open by all of the weird stuff going on, especially around COVID. And she joined in on giving her voice to issues and solutions in a very cool way. She does comedy. She does, like satire kind of comedy. She does political commentary. She does, random, like, this is what's going on in my life, IRL type content. I love Kali. Kali's great. So shout out to her. Tomorrow we will be talking about teachers' unions, okay, their impact on teachers, their impact on schools and students. We'll be talking about like her kind of wisdom, her take on some of this stuff, and how we bring a better environment, for our kids. So get super hype for tomorrow's episode. Now, some housekeeping. Again, I want to remind you, please like the video, subscribe to the channels. I do have the great aspiration to one day monetize this YouTube channel. And if you do not subscribe, then I just can't do that. Okay. So hit the button, especially if you like the content. But even if you don't, just hit the button. It's free. Nobody's gonna, charge you for it, and nobody's gonna check if you really like the content or not. If you're here, then you are in for real conversations about natural law, religion, money, anarchy, government, culture, and how mankind is manipulated by extremely evil forces, and what's best to do about that. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But even though religion is in that list of things that we cover here, we are not bashing faith systems here. We are not calling people stupid for having a religion or a faith system. We are simply acknowledging and studying and re examining the psychological affects and effects of the popular stories that we have the most faith in and the most stake in, and what those stories do to our minds, to the minds of our children, and to our worldview, um, as well as how these stories help shape society. And that examination sits right alongside an honest look, an honest re examination or respect of the current human condition. And humanity's current condition is slavery. Government is slavery. And the question that we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper, in depth, full understanding of the inner storyteller, and of the self. And if that makes you uneasy, if that makes your stomach curl up a little bit, of course, you're encouraged to stay, but you're welcome to leave. No hard feelings. Just make sure you like the video before you get out of here. All right, housekeeping over. And we can kind of dive right in. I want to start off by sharing this a portion of this wonderful YouTube video. It is so freaking good. And yeah, so I invite you to check this out with me before I go any further. Yeah. Okay. Boom. Check this out. No, get bigger again. How'd you get small? There we go. Check this out. And now let's slow this down a little bit because he just said something very important. I'm gonna bring it back a little bit, and then I'm gonna see if you guys caught it, and I'll give some commentary. The same carefully curated versions of history and science. One more time. They shaped the laws, the education laws specifically. Now, can you imagine wielding the power to shape education laws and being at the head of industry for an entire country, the size of our country? I'm sure you can't imagine that. But this power that was wielded by these extremely evil families was a real thing and was a product, okay, of the separation. Like, how do I say this? It was a product, it was a direct product of the worldview that results from adhering to the religions of money and man's authority. Okay, we talk a lot about religion on this channel, and the two biggest religions, in my humble opinion, are the religion of monetary value, okay, which I call the mother of all religions, and the religion of man's authority, which in today's time would be the religion of government, but it's the religion of rulers. It's the religion that there are some people that have a right to rule over others, and and everybody else has a divine obligation to obey them. And this worldview creates, when enough people adhere to these religions, money is the physical sort of manifest, um, where you can see it happening, you can measure it, quantify it, is the measurable um, manifestation of the division between classes. And the religion of authority gives the chain of command part of that equation. And when you mix the two, the religion of money and the religion of false authority, into the the shaping of schooling and the shaping of power, even, you get families and people who are, who have a lot of this thing called money, who have a lot of control over what transactions big government institutions and big education, as it's been deemed by some researchers, what big education is going to do with the children. Okay. um it's a very vicious cycle. It's a very vicious psychological cycle. I'm gonna get back into the video because I want to play a couple minutes of it. But it's very important to realize that these people were wielding enough power to shape the laws in all of the states as far as what education is going to look like and what is legal for education departments of states to do and not do. Hmm. Okay. So the competition. Hold on. Let me bring it back just a little bit more, one more time, because I just want to say those key phrases again. Okay. So sorted and graded according to metrics, just like products that are sorted and not graded, but sorted and checked for quality in an assembly line or in some sort of factory setting where products are going to be distributed. The minds, the human being that's been shaped and trained and their mind has been programmed by this system, is the product that they are sorting and qualifying and quantifying. um, let's continue. And I just want to say, I know I just hit play and then I paused it again. I'm gonna rewind it so that you get this whole sentence. But the bells, man. Let me tell you something about the bells. Okay. School bell, and I mean this from a psychological standpoint. I don't mean this as some sort of pet peeve complaint. Okay. The psychological effects and effects of school bells is something to be studied for multiple lifetimes. A bell, in this regard, is an automated directive. Okay, it's the automation of a directive given to students not by a human being, okay, and not by something on the same level perceptually in our perception as the student or even the teacher. Even some of the authorities are under the authority level, the chain of command level, okay, of the bell. The bell, now teachers act like, you know, they're above the bell because a teacher, an adult, knows past a certain extent that, but I'm a human and the bell is just this machine thing. It's just this sound that we're not supposed to ignore it. Right. And so they say things like, you're not dismissed by the bell, you're dismissed by me. I dismiss you. Or uh, whatever they say, different things. But the bell is this automated directives giver that feels almost like this overlord of, timing, how much time you have to be somewhere, paying attention to that stuff. It gives you the directive to shut up, stop paying attention to that over there, and move over here. Okay, and go pay attention to this stuff. And then I'm gonna ring again for when that you're supposed to be there. You only got this much time in the hallway. That every you got to think about it. The bell goes on what you have, 6 to 8 subjects in a day, right? I think I had 7 classes in middle school and high school both. I think. Sorry, it's been a while. It's been a couple. I'm 35, so whatever. 34. I'll be 35 this year. So whatever that math is, that's how long it's been since I was in middle school. But I believe I had 7 subjects, 7 blocks, 7 classrooms that I went to. It might have been it might have been like 6 to 8. I'll say 6 to 8 times a day. You get 2 bells. Okay, 6 to 8 times a day, 2 bells go off. The first one tells you to move. The second one tells you to sit. And we can even say 7 to 9 because there's the beginning of the school day bell and the end of the school day bell as well, right? And you every single day, 7 times a day, you hear the bell. The bell tells you to go, and you go. And not only do you go, you see your entire world go because you're in this building, and your entire world goes with the sound of the bell, stops with the sound of the bell, activates with the sound of the bell, deactivates with the sound of the bell. Every day, 200 days a year, right? 160 some 170 days a year. Okay? This is a very, very effective inner storyteller programming tool. Okay? And it runs the association to you think about concepts like AI. You think about concepts like the future of AI or chips that may be inserted into your arm or just something like that. And there's this relationship that you have with these automated directives leading to, eventually in the future, because school bells have been going on for a long time. So leading to eventually in the future, other forms of automated directives that may be coming in your workplace, that may come from, let's say if you live in another country, there may be some sort of loudspeaker system that gives automated instructions at certain times a day, every day, or not. Uh, the first thing I think about is in the movie V for Vendetta, where they had this curfew, this yellow coated curfew, they said in one of the opening scenes. And there's just this idea that the only people out were random street cops and or criminals, or ladies of the night, and and everybody else had to be inside because it's curfew, right? And if you're caught outside, then the police are free to enforce the law, enforce the authority. One of the first things I think about, but this, I had to, and I'm gonna bring it back a little bit, like I said, but I had to stress this thing about the bells, man. The bells are interesting. All right. The bells. Now, I'm not going to list everything he just listed. The social pressure to conform, the um, culture of memorizing instruction instead of developing creative problem solving within your holistic self. All of these things he lines up, and then he asks the question. Well, let me let him ask it. And the answer is very clear, right? It's oh wait. Ah, that's hilarious. Well, let's start over. Let's start the fuck over. That's hilarious.
Oil
Okay, here
into
we
the
go.
largest corporation in the world by controlling the entire supply chain. He didn't just sell oil, he controlled the wells, the refineries, the railroads, the distribution networks. Total vertical integration. Now imagine applying that same strategy to human capital. If you could control education, you could control the next generation's thinking, their values, their aspirations, their entire understanding of how the world works. That's exactly what happened. The General Education Board wasn't just throwing money at schools, they were engineering a system. They funded university education departments at Columbia, Stanford, and Chicago. They bankrolled research into scientific teaching methods. They created the modern teacher training programs that still exist today. They determined which textbooks got published. McGraw-Hill, Pearson, Houghton Mifflin. These publishing giants rose to dominance with Rockefeller backing. The same textbooks from California to Maine, the same lessons, the same carefully curated version of history and science.
Okay, so we got that much so far. Same lessons, same carefully curated version version of history and science.
They shaped state education laws. Model legislation was drafted by foundation lawyers and introduced in state capitals across the country.
Okay, and then we have where I was talking about the the way that these people were wielding the power to shape the laws of every state education department, which is extremely important to keep in mind as we discuss these things, because the power differential that it was already in effect, again, initially created through just the two religions of the religion of monetary value and the religion of man's authority, okay, of government. And the entire world is almost already adherents to these two religions. Money, we already got them hundreds of years ago, but the religion of false authority is almost like fully complete at this time. And they are wielding the power to fund and shape and influence and even direct the laws of the education departments in every state in a country this big, taking care of so to speak, this many people. Now, I don't know the US population at that time, but today we have over 300 million people. Okay, so just keep all that in mind as we continue. And I'm not going to talk as long as I did for the first times when I wasn't showing you any fucking picture, but I am going to let this go to where it was, give a little more commentary, and then we'll just keep going as if I didn't make that horrible mistake and embarrass myself.
Mandatory attendance, curriculum requirements, teacher certification, all coordinated from the top, and they did it all under the banner of progress and charity. Nobody asked what kind of economy was being built. Nobody questioned who would own it. Frederick Gates, the chief architect of Rockefeller's education plan, was brutally honest about the goal in private correspondence. He wrote that they wanted to create a permanent dependent class that would never compete with the ruling elite. The General Education Board would train the peasantry to be happy and contented with their station in life.
Okay, so this man that he named was brutally honest about exactly what they were doing with the school system in private communications. And one of the things he said is we're creating two classes of learner, okay? Two types of people that will go through schooling, that will endure schooling, for 12 years or for whatever amount of years. And the first one that they describe is us, is the 99%, we the people, etc. And the non-elites, us, 99%, were the design was as explicitly explicitly stated by the designers of this modern school system, wanted to create a whole class of people, a whole multi-generation class of people who were content with where they were in life, who didn't want to be ambitious, who were extremely good at order following, who were obedient, compliant, timely, and not creative. Okay, they memorize and they do what they memorized and then repeat, rinse and repeat, go to sleep and repeat. That's the first class of people they wanted to create. Now, pay very close attention to the second class of people that they wanted to create.
This wasn't conspiracy theory. This was documented policy. The Rockefeller Foundation. Annual reports from 1913 to 1936 spelled it out clearly. They funded John Dewey's progressive education movement. They backed behavioral psychology research. They promoted the factory model of schooling where students moved through grades like products on an assembly line, sorted and graded according to standardized metrics.
Sorted and graded according to standardized metrics. And this is why the design is like that, because they want to create people who are used to being sorted and graded. Okay. If you have a regular job, especially men out there who aren't necessarily like maybe secretaries or something, if you work in finance or you work in, labor, or you work in don't you still get graded? Don't you still have, if you drive and there's a camera and your company has, super expensive insurance to insure its drivers, don't you still get graded? Even if you're not actually causing property damage or stealing things from people with your drive, or let's say driving recklessly and hitting, causing property damage or whatever, or hitting people with the company vehicle, don't you still lose your bonus for tiny infractions and things? I'm just saying, okay. And this is the type of person that's okay with that setup is the exact type of person that they aimed to create, that they aimed to mold and shape and then spit out into the workforce like a product, like a bottle of milk. And they were very largely successful.
Think about your own school experience. The bells, the rigid schedules, the requirement to sit still, be quiet, and absorb information without questioning it. The emphasis on following directions rather than creative problem solving. The social pressures to conform. The ranking systems that created artificial competition between students. Does that sound like an environment designed to cultivate independent thinking?
Nope.
Or does it sound like training for factory work?
This is kind of where I left off at, kind of, sort of. Or does it sound like training for factory work? Now, this model of schooling was designed by, of course, leaders of industry. Okay, the top, the head, the top of the food chain of industry needed, if they were going to make a whole lot of money while they were still in their lifetime, people who were not holistic human beings, people that were one track minded, docile, ready to follow orders, because industry needed consistent work, consistent hard work that was repetitive and, kind of kills creativity in the mind. And they needed people that would be okay with that setup in the workplace. Therefore, they trained children to be okay with it by the time they hit middle school and to expect it by the time they hit high school, and so on.
Where it gets darker. In the early 1900s, there was another education system that existed parallel to...
Okay, so here's where he's getting ready to get into the other class of people that will also endure schooling, but this is a much smaller percent of the population. Check it out.
In the early 1900s, there was another education system that existed parallel to public schools, private classical academies. These schools taught Latin, Greek, philosophy, advanced mathematics, rhetoric. They produced the lawyers, doctors, politicians, and business owners who would run society. Guess who attended these schools? The children of the wealthy, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts. The ruling class sent their kids to institutions that taught critical thinking, leadership, and classical knowledge.
Critical thinking, leadership, and classical knowledge were not in the list of things set up for the other class, for the 99%, for the us. Interesting. What else did this other class of students get?
Meanwhile, everyone else's children were funneled into a system designed to produce compliant workers. Two different education systems, two different outcomes.
One of the great things about this right here, this image, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving around, is you have the legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. You have a Bill of Rights summary, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to assemble, freedom of religion, right to bear arms, right to hear, I guess, right to a hearing, search and seizure protection, right? Don't search and seizure my property, due process clause. You have these images. One of the most prominent things that stands out to me as a bit of a, as an ex-history major, in college or whatever, is civics today. Not even just today. Civics in this system was dumbed down so very much, right? When they stopped teaching us about what leadership, what it means to, because I don't want to sound like I'm advocating for government. So let's set aside natural law for a quick sec and just kind of understand that a lot of people are coming from a place that's so far away from what's real and what's true and the here and now moment, and so deeply indoctrinated into what we have is just the way things are and natural even, and set natural law aside. And I may say some things that I don't actually want to, just that'll sound like I'm advocating for government, but check it out. The way that we learn about civics, about how to run a country, how to run a government, today, right? And since they took over the school system and changed the textbooks and made everybody learn the same things, they made sure to take out of those lesson plans, curriculum standards, any type of like ethics, philosophy, debates on the proper way to govern, the debates on, what past countries and empires and kingdoms, what they did right, what they did wrong, as people in the natural law community talk about the trivium and quadrivium methods of learning. right? Where first you have to gather the body of work and read it and put it together in your mind for understanding, and then start to say and act upon what you've first gathered, then took the man hours to understand this, and then put into your actions. Of course, this dumbed down way of looking at government became one of the ways that they normalized slavery, normalized government in society. So we're picking natural law back up now. We put it down for a quick second. It didn't like the floor. It was complaining. So we pick it back up. Okay. Put it back on your head, in your head. And we'll never put natural law down again. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's the way that they normalized government being a good thing, some sort of good thing for society. Is they stopped teaching in a way that included debates on whatever we're setting up and whatever has gone down. We stopped talking about why the Second Amendment was there. We stopped talking about what led to the Declaration of Independence and the war with Britain, the war that started the country. I said history major, and now I'm like blanking on pretty much the most important war in American history. That whatever. I don't care about the names. I know Washington fought in it. Regardless, we're not taught about the things that led up to these things and the worldview of the people that drafted these documents and letters and came up with how we govern here in the United States or whatever. They don't include any creative thought whatsoever in civics. What do they include? Well, they include the names of the branches, the basic kind of functions of the branches, the names of people that achieved a lot in politics, some dates and some big decisions like the Civil Rights Act, signed by a staunch racist. And we're given Black history, as a part of civics, some Martin Luther King and Malcolm X lessons, heavy emphasis on King and de-emphasis on X, right? Just we're given this way to see history that is completely in lockstep with what the government wants us and tells us to think and believe. You know what I'm saying? We can see the mouse cursor. Great. That's awesome sauce. And we have to be aware of these patterns. We got to look at these patterns honestly, right? The training that we receive in modern Rockefeller designed government schools teaches us things, right? It teaches us, just like we covered in the last 2 episodes, to serve the authorities in the room, okay? To respond to the bells and the other automated directives, to stay disconnected from the information, right? You go to math, you learn whatever that lesson is for right now. And the next time you show up at math, you may have a test or quiz on that information. And you may be told this will also be on the final for the semester or a marking period in young, semester. I associate semester more so with college because that's when I started hearing it. We had marking periods when I was in high school and middle school. So, maybe on the final for this marking period, and you memorize that. Then you get to the test, you take the test, right? Then after the test, you really don't even need that information anymore. Not most of it. And I use math as probably the worst example, especially reading, history, biology kind of science, where it's not necessarily like quantum or electric, molecular kind of science, but biological, where you're trying to learn about Darwin and dissect a frog and You learn how electricity moves from, through a circuit, how a battery works, all of these type of things. You learn it, and what they imply by how the design of the school system and how the teachers are taught to teach the information is, if they can pass the test, then you've done right. And so we are disconnected from the information. We're not taking the information that we're learning and really deeply connecting it with our own lives and our own understanding about what we can build with our own hands at any age, what we can design with our own minds at any age, what ideas we can spout and put into rhetoric that helps the inventors and technologically inclined people at any age. All of these things, all of the genius that could be pouring out of us if we were able to not be so disconnected from the information we learn in class, is snuffed out, right? And that's another lesson that we're taught. So serve the authorities in the room, respond to the automated directives like the school bells, and to stay disconnected from the information unless it's going to be on your next test, in which case you got to keep it in there just for that long. Surface compliance. No understanding whatsoever, no real understanding, and no real ownership of what you're learning, right? And then yesterday, we looked at John Taylor Gatto's take, which brought this same train of thought a little deeper. And he reminded us that the real lessons that we learn in class are confusion, class position, indifference, emotional dependency, intellectual dependency, provisional self-esteem, and constant surveillance, or the fact that you are always being watched and you cannot hide. Okay, that is what they baked into the design on purpose. And these messages, these inner storyteller targeted messages, these messages that specifically target the most powerful meaning-making machine in the human, in the intelligent life forms in the 3D, have lasting affect and effects. Okay, these messages have lasting effects. Most importantly, they affect your worldview. Worldview is defined as the comprehensive, fundamental framework of beliefs, values, and assumptions through which an individual or society interprets reality, experiences, and makes sense of life. Okay, your worldview is like your colored lenses. It's your mental filter, which filters, knowledge, information, experiences, gains and losses. It filters and it shapes how you understand your place in the world and the world's place in existence. Okay, and by the world's place, this could mean, the political world that you're familiar with's place. It could mean humanity's place. It could mean, just some big broad concept, like the world's place in existence as well as your place in the world. And your worldview influences your daily actions and your daily decisions, right? So when your worldview is skewed in such a way that you normalize and even expect that everyone around you is supposed to be maturing into an order follower, supposed to be maturing into a docile, passive citizen, then your worldview is in service of evil forces. And if your worldview is like that, dear viewer, whom I love and who I care about, who I do this work for, then you have some real self-respect to go through. You have some real shadow work that you might want to, just take a second and visit your shadow work corner and understand yourself, right? We're taught to associate care with rhetoric. Me showing that I care means that I'm talking privately at the dinner table about how much I have a pet peeve about what we're going through. Right? That's not real care. Um, care is not just I can spout memorized dates, statistics, and facts. I've taken the time to, just like I was in school, memorize the numbers and the quantifications of a specific problem. Therefore, I care about it. I care so much, right? We feel as if we display facts, if we display an ability, a high capacity to spout facts about a given problem, then we are displaying care about those problems. Even if we can't actually demonstrate deep understanding of the context of the problem within the larger human family, within the larger problem of the religion of money and the religion of false authority, right? As well as the traditions, the faith traditions, and their effect on the human family, right? Their negative effect on the human family, all due respect, right? Um, and look, we've had these religions, billions have been following these world traditions, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, all the isms, all the anities, and for thousands of years, and we can see the fruits of them. We see the fruits. The fruits are not good. They're rotten. Okay, so I will be speaking very plainly about religion, and as I learn my voice, and as I continue to grow with you on this channel, I'll probably get a little less sensitive in my own rhetoric regarding religion. But before then, stay with me, because you'll grow with me if you stick here. Stick with me. Uh, we have to pay attention to the patterns, and we have to walk out of our comfort zones, okay, and engage in real world activity, real world change that moves towards the solutions we want to see when we think about these problems. And yeah, man, that's pretty much all that I had to say in today's episode. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I hope you take the time to reflect on the things that we talked about. I do, again, want to just hype up tomorrow's episode with Kali Fontanilla. Kali Fontanilla. It's your humble host, Soul Expression. We will be right here on these channels, on this channel, for a real conversation, timeless truth. Yeah, May 13th, 2026. Oh, tomorrow it'll be an hour later. So 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be live right here. I'll have my notes ready. I'll be better at, when I share the screen, adding it to the stage. That's what you know what I'm saying? That was cool, he says. That's what StreamYard calls it, the stage. So you gotta share your screen, and then, because we're used to Zoom, right? Everybody went through COVID and was already working. We got used to Zoom. And so Zoom, you hit share screen and you click which screen you want to share, and it pops up on the video. But in StreamYard, you click the screen you want to share, and then that pops up on your screen, but you have to remember to go back to StreamYard and click add to stage. I don't think, if it's not on the stage, it should make that tab pop up on your thing, because it psychologically makes me think that, oh, everybody can see this. Regardless, I'm making excuses. You guys deserve better than I gave you today, but we'll get there. I have patience with myself. I'm not really mad. And I love you. Please like the video, subscribe to the channels. Okay. Even if you don't like the video, as in like you prefer other videos, just click the like before you get out of here. Okay. You're encouraged to stay, but you're welcome to leave if you so choose. And I will see you guys tomorrow for my interview with Kali Fontanilla. Peace and love.